Welcome to Hit. This is Chris Cicchinelli. We're talking everything high-intensity tactics for growth. And today, I've got a serial entrepreneur, a man that is just doing some really cool things here in Cincinnati. I love to get some of that entrepreneur kind of leadership that's going on. What are things that are happening in business? Josh Guttman is a partner at Kable Group and Business DNA Group, is taking Hit to the next level today, okay? So we are going to be talking about his strategy of how he looks through a wide lens to drive your business forward. Plus, he says giving is more than getting. He's going to explain that today on Hit. Josh Guttman, I appreciate you taking your time, buddy, to be here.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Well, all right, let's talk a little bit about this because you've kind of done a lot of stuff. I know you've been in sales. I know you've started a bunch of different companies. Give everybody kind of a quick background on your kind of business acumen.
Sure. So started technically in the radio business, salesperson, loved it. Great time. Moved up the management cycle. At one point, I was the youngest. We converted to Clear Channel. I was actually the youngest manager in the entire company.
Is that worldwide, or is that
in the entire country? I went to a conference. I was called 29 years old, and I walk in and I started asking every manager how old they were. There were maybe like 800 of us, right? And I was like, geez, well, I'm the youngest guy here. I actually walked up to the CEO at the time, this is the Mays family, and I said, hey, my name's Josh Guttman, and you'll know me in 10 years. Well, as it turned out, a year later, they didn't know me because I got fired, right? And at the time I got fired, I was the only station of the whole 8 that we had in the marketplace that was actually outperforming the marketplace.
Yeah.
I never missed a budget, ever. But my boss didn't like me. So that, and valuable lesson, right, is, there's two places, there's below and above. And that was the trigger where I said, I am never going to work long-term for somebody again, because I was shocked, you know. And so I went on and continued my radio career and worked for a company called Radio One. They came to Cincinnati, ran an African-American radio stations, and loved it, but I knew I wasn't going to work for anybody ever again for long term. So 4 years later, I called a great friend of mine that was in the radio business, said, hey, I got an idea. Let's start a company that's focused on Hispanic marketing. And so he said, why not? So I quit my great job that I loved. And I think it was 2006, and the two of us started a Hispanic newspaper in Cincinnati, Ohio, with the thoughts that we'd expand these newspapers all over the place. And that was sort of where the whole thing evolves, right? Is nothing is ever what you write down on your, for anybody that ever does them, you write your business plan and you submit it and you're like, this is my 1-year plan, my 2-year plan, my 5-year plan. I call it my bullshit plan, right? Because, you just all, I mean,
no idea what the hell's going to happen.
I still have it to this day, and I read it every once in a while,
Yeah.
and I just laugh at what I predicted. It never came close on any of it. Literally, what was supposed to be a newspaper ended up, over time, evolving into a multi-platform, statewide Hispanic network of radio stations, newspaper, print, events, digital services, and that was completely different than the business plan. So that's sort of how my entrepreneurial career took off. We got into a world where we just didn't feel like growth made sense because the cost to expand was outrageous. And we just started asking ourselves, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And so we thought, let's start buying companies that are extensions of the Hispanic audience we have. So the first thing we did is we bought a fence company, a residential fence company, because this company was doing great, but their number one challenge was labor, right? So we said, well, we've got access to an entire community that's willing to work hard, through our network, the Hispanic market. And so, when we got there, we found out that building a fence is actually really technical.
Yeah.
Really technical. So that we were, we don't have an employment base for that. Time to think of another strategy. So then we looked and we said, why don't we own some of the businesses that are advertising on our stations? Why not just own the company?
Yeah.
And we kind of narrowed in on staffing. We looked and we realized about 20% of every dollar we were getting in our advertising dollars were people calling us because they were interested in hiring Hispanic labor.
Yeah.
And it's not for any other reason because it was a compliment. They work really hard. And they really wanted to try to find them, and they didn't know how to do it. And we were a resource throughout Ohio. So then we realized about 10% of that 50% of that was staffing companies. So we said, well, why don't we just start our own staffing company? And that's, what we did. We went ahead and we actually went to start a staffing company. We found our number one customer. We brought her along with us. She did not have a non-compete. When she quit, the company called us up and said, hey, would you be willing just to buy us? Because we don't know what we're doing without her.
Yeah.
And that was the Kable group, or it was the Kable staffing. It was one office. And so we've expanded services throughout. So now we've bought other companies since. We go anywhere from unskilled labor all the way up to high-level engineering. But we're pretty strategic. We're really focused in Ohio. Growth is not our strategy.
Yeah.
We actually climbed the mountain quick, and we stopped the mountain and actually brought it back down because we want to make margin.
Yeah.
And
you can't eat off of top line sales growth. A lot of people forget that in business. Everybody's like, oh my God, I want to grow as fast as I can. But I'm always like, are you growing profitably?
And the answer is usually no.
Yeah, most of the time I talk to people and they see these high growth numbers. Even when we were growing Pure Romance in the beginning, we went from $1.4 million, 4 to 8 to 16, 16 to 32. We had no money. I tell everybody, they're like, what do you mean? You're at $32 million. You don't have money. I'm like, no, because all we're doing is feeding the beast. And that is the truth. When you see some of these businesses that look at that.
If you want to make money, you got to think about margin more than you do growth. And you got to think about taking good business. But then there's the flip side of you got to get good people.
Yep.
And good people cost money.
Yep.
So, the most important piece is, and it's taken us 15 years to really hone in on this, is your real return on investment is if you get good people.
Well, it's kind of funny because I'm sitting here thinking about this, right? In 2006, you go and you start your own company. That is like 2 years before the big bomb had dropped. The economy goes to crap. Everything is happening in the world today. And here you are, going to start something. Had a great corporate job. You're making good money. You got your little car bonus. You got your, everything. You got a nice little security, probably got a nice little house in suburbia. And all of a sudden here you are, you're going, oh crap, I'm going to take on this. I'm going to do this whole thing by myself. And then the world drops this bomb. How did you make it through that time? Was that a hard time, especially starting a business? Because I believe that there are so many hurdles, there are so many things as business owners that we have to go through, and most people quit because they can't take the pain.
Well, I don't know why I didn't mention that before, because that sort of was the hurdle that made us evolve. So we grew. The first 2 years we grew like mad. We were just. And then 08, 09, we had investor money that we could call.
Yeah.
That costs money, by the way. That
It
doesn't come free.
No,
we thought it did.
Investors are not cheap, and they're not. Yeah, they like their money, and they like to be paid on time,
and they deserve it. So we had investor call money that we could use, but there was a larger percentage of our business going away, and we also had a $500,000 line of credit, which in those days seemed like a ton. And we started, because we were doing well, we took all their money, we took all the calls, and we expanded into Atlanta, we expanded into Detroit, we expanded into Columbus, we expanded into Cleveland, and then 08, 09 happened. And we went belly up on all of them. Literally, we had to close everything. And Cincinnati was the only thing left we could keep, and a little bit of Columbus. And we had literally spent every dollar of investor money. And we were at, this is a true story, we were at $495,000 on the line of credit. My partner, Brian, says, man, we got nothing left. Mm-hmm. And we had a pivot moment where we went to our investors and we said, look, we want to get back into radio. We know it. There's a station in Columbus we think we can take over. And so we did that, and we just made enough money to pay that line of credit off and survive. But, as our business grew and we did better, and when we finally sold that media business, really most of the money we made on that went back to the investors.
But here's the question: why didn't you quit when you're $495,000? You feel like shit. I bet you're feeling like, God, what the hell happened here? There were some things that were probably, when you think about economy out of control. Some things you can't plan for. They happen, and then you have to kind of, like you said, pivot. Why did you guys continue to keep pushing forward?
I think a couple things. We had great investors that were supportive and were willing to give us more to hold on to the investment they'd had if need be. So that was a little bit of a security blanket. I have a great partner, so yin and yang. I mean, he understands financials and detail and operational support. Like I would go bankrupt in 2 days. You know, I think he'd go bankrupt without me, but I would definitely go bankrupt without him.
Yeah.
So
Brian probably keeps you really.
He's just so. You know, the good news is I had somebody that I trusted, and he was pushing me through. We were close.
Yeah.
There was a conversation we had, and we said to one of our investors, "Look, we need to make X over the next year, or this just isn't worth it. What do you want to do?" And we figured it out, and we persevered. And but again, 08, 09, businesses did great. But if you were a small business and you were getting investment at that point, that investment cost you even more. And I'm telling you right now, we paid the price for that in 2018 when we sold the company. I mean, and it was great. It's a great experience. I will tell anybody, you really want to use investors when you absolutely have to, because it feels like free money.
It's never free money.
And it shouldn't be, because they're giving you their money. They deserve it. They deserve it.
But I see so many young business owners that, they go and they crowdsource for family, for friends. They give up equity. Never give up equity. It's like giving up your arm. You give up anything before you give up equity. And I see that a lot. I see, when it comes into kind of the investors. But you're right. You know what? But here's the thing. You had this business opportunity. You had this foresight that you weren't going to work for anybody. You pushed through where most people would have given up at that moment. $495,000 into your line, you're like, shit, this isn't working. But you were able to, again, pivot and do that. And that takes perseverance. That takes, being uncomfortable for a little bit of time.
For a long time.
Yeah.
I think if I have a really good partner. Mm-hmm. And you can't do it all on your own. You got to have balance. So either in some cases, people have a great president, or they have a great CFO, or they have a great COO. In our case, we were the president, the CEO, the CFO, the controller. Yeah. And we have different skill sets. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of embarrassment too. I mean, you don't want to fail, but we look back and laugh, because almost everything we've done, we've had so many failures. Mm-hmm. So many failures. And just idea-wise, because you're throwing spaghetti against the wall. Calculated ideas that within our business that we do today, for the ones that have worked, have been great, but we laugh at all the ones that haven't. And the investors always remember the ones that haven't, by the way.
Yeah, they never remember the ones that have.
No.
It is kind of that. It is kind of funny when you think about that. But, when you look at this, you think about the history, if you had the ups and the downs in business. But, I look at you as, the first thing I always said, and when they said, I want to bring him on the show, is your ability, like you walked up to the Mays family, right? You walked up, said, "Hey, my name is Josh," and having that, we talk about that in business a lot, is having that courage to walk in a room and understand that people aren't buying products anymore. They're buying people. They're buying the way that we interact. They buy the confidence as how we go up and we shake somebody's hand. And I believe that networking has led you to, one, a lot of people can't get people to invest in them, because one, most people aren't confident with yourself. Like, I don't think you've ever had an issue or a problem with that, but why has kind of networking helped you? Because I look at you today, I'm in YPO with you, which is, for those that are listening, it's Young Presidents Organization. And you've been able to come in there in the last couple of years, network with so many different people, but you've been doing that your whole entire life.
Well, it's funny. People give me energy, but really, this is going to be sort of odd. I'm actually introverted more than people, even though I do get energy. But I think because I'm introverted, I actually act like I'm extroverted, and so I have to. Yeah. Excuse me, when I feel like I give people energy. I should have said it the other way, and so I feel like I've always got to be on. Yeah. And so networking always has been part of it. But I do enjoy. I am fascinated with people. Like I am. I don't read nonfiction. Mm-hmm. I don't read fiction, excuse me. Yeah. I only read nonfiction. Yeah. I am so fascinated with other people and what they do. And success is measured in so many ways. I just find people one-on-one are fascinating. Almost everybody you meet, if you can get them one-on-one, will wow you. Yeah. And there's so much to learn about them. And I do. So I try to get to know people in a way. I'm genuine about it. I mean, I
Yeah.
really genuinely like people. I mean,
Yeah.
I genuinely am trying
It
to understand
comes
them.
across, and that's the thing with you that I've recognized is that you do enjoy people, and when I hear people say that I can't do it because I'm afraid to go up and talk to people, or I can't. People don't know that about me. I used to sweat, my palms would sweat before I had to go in and talk to somebody, and over a period of time, it's repetition. It's committing to that process. The outcome is I always want to be able to get up and speak, but I got a D in speaking class when I was in school. Now I have no problem with a microphone. Give me a microphone and I can talk in front of anybody. But it was not easy. But the same thing, I get fueled by audience. I get fueled by the people. I get fueled by the stories. And I think those are the things that when I watch you interact. And for a business owner that's out there today, how important is that to be able to network and go to different events?
Personally, I think well, if you're not the one networking, you better have somebody in your organization
Yeah.
that can. And technology is at our right there for us. I mean, LinkedIn could be the greatest technology for a business owner or a COO or a president, because people don't have time to meet with you. You need something warm, right?
Yeah.
And I use LinkedIn all the time. I'll tell my reps all the time, hey, tell me who you're trying to find. If I don't know them, I bet you I know somebody that does. And people are always willing to help you. Like, sure, be happy to set up a meeting.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that the owner or the president has to be an incredible networker, but somebody in your organization has to be an incredible networker. And I'm not saying I am the incredible networker. I'm saying that you have to have that, because you're not going to make contact with people in today's world. You're just not. It's not. You can't walk into a business and just cold call them. It doesn't work like that anymore.
You've got to have connections, and connections come through networking. And I truly believe that. The kid came up to me the other day. I'm doing this Huntington, CEO talk down at 3 Points Brewery, and the guy comes up. And he's like, "Hey, listen, I want I've listened to your podcast. You came right up. You very, very, aggressive, but very respectful." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? Look, let's take a meeting." You know how many people though that go, "Oh, I'm scared to come up and talk to you," or I don't want to have those conversations. Those are people that have missed opportunities, because I'm just as nervous to meet them. And I think people take that and they don't understand, because there's a position or there's a whatever, or the fear of introvert or fear of rejection. But you know what? I give that kid a lot of credit. And also I hooked him up in my department, and I remember it. And I think that's hugely important.
There's a huge difference between networking and taking advantage.
Okay.
And I think there's a line.
Okay.
And I'm very cautious of that. If someone wants to help you, they will.
Yep.
But the expectation shouldn't be that I'm getting to know you because you're a connection. And there's a very fine line. I do everything in my power to make sure that the relationship's not manipulated because of who they are or what they can offer. And I also always try to make sure that I always ask, hey, can you get me in a door? But I don't ask them to
close the deal.
Definitely not. Or
No.
to, because that's when is the relationship genuine or is it fake?
Yeah.
And I try my hardest to make it genuine, because I think that's important.
Give me up in front of the crowd. I'll sell the deal. But at the end of the day, it's that's the most important thing. And somebody has to, sometimes it's nice to have somebody be able to open a door for you. Use your relationships, use your connections, use your people that are going to be references for you. I think is important. Now, you said your strategy is to view business through a wide lens and narrow it down and connect the dots. What do you mean by that?
So everybody in any industry does the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has a competitor. I mean,
Yeah.
very few, right?
Yeah.
So you have 1,000 companies that do what you do.
Absolutely.
Maybe not as well, but it's the same. To be honest, it's the same product.
Yeah.
They're probably going to the same distribution areas, and they probably have the same materials. So you got to be different. You got to figure out what's your secret sauce. And so what we've tried to do with everything we've done is just, what can we do to be just a hair different, whether it's on a customer service side or on the staffing side. Our newest piece of the puzzle, which I think will be our greatest moment. I truly believe it'll be the most successful thing we've ever done, is we are going to build our talent. So right now we're out looking for talent. We're going to create boot camps to develop the talent in any given field that the customer needs, from unskilled labor, creating skilled labor, which then in turn throws those people into jobs that they would have never have had before. And that's going to make us different than anybody else that does it. So that's what I meant by wide lens, is just don't fool yourself. I mean, we are no different than any other staffing company. We can say whatever we want. The only thing that's different about us is we're going to work our butts off for you and hope that the client appreciates that.
But that's the truth. I mean, there's so many of us that are right now, right? Like everybody says, what do you do so different? You know what? We just outwork you. We come up, we're innovative. We come up with new ideas, throw a bunch of things that we try, but we're not afraid to try things. I think, Valerie Jacobs was here from LPK, and we're talking about like trends and things that are happening. We've been riding a trend for a long period of time. We've been different, especially living here in Cincinnati, in what you're doing. You're not just becoming you're not just a staffing agency or service. You're going to actually develop, inside, disciplines and being able to bring up the type of employee that people are going to want, which I think is hugely important. All right. I love this one, because this was one that when we started talking, our producer said you added in and said, let's talk about leadership pillars. You live by this whole thing. Giving is more than getting. So what does that mean to you?
Couple things. One, I get so much more energy from doing things for other people than I do for myself. My wife is like that. I mean, she was born into that. That's the way her family was. And there's so much more energy. I am very lucky in the world I live in. Trust me, I'm truly lucky. But, sometimes, you got to really check yourself and say, what can you do? Like, don't be greedy. And I said this yesterday to somebody. I live by what I need, not what I want.
Yep.
And I know that's a lot of people buy and do what they want. I do what I need.
Yep.
And I feel like the rest of that energy should go towards giving back.
Yep.
And and it doesn't have to be money. It could be time. It could be talking to a friend and they say, hey, I'm struggling. My kid can't get into the school. And you say, wait a minute, I know somebody at that school. Let me make a phone call for you. I find that too many people in this world today are get, and it should be more give. And it's just my own personal.
No,
my wife.
It's so
as well.
funny. You had the same conversation I did yesterday, but whatever.
We might have been in the same spot.
Probably the same spot. And my whole thing was I'm uberly shocked about how many people have a plan of how much retirement they want to have and where they want to go when they're 60 and all this other stuff. But does anybody have a charity plan? The answer is most don't. Time, money, whatever. And I'm like amazed when people go, I haven't really thought about charity. Well, wait, what do you mean you haven't thought about it? Well, I don't have enough money. Wait, are you shitting me? Like, what do you mean you don't have enough money? It should be a part of, I guess, it's a fiber of person's DNA.
Absolutely.
And for me to hear that, I was given to charities and donating and doing whatever. I have the same philosophy. And, my philosophy, and everybody knows that listens to the show, is that, my job is to make the world better in which I found it. Do my part to make it a better place, because I'm the same way with you.
Yeah.
It's so funny when we came out with our with Living with Change Foundation, there was more people that came up to me, not because of what we've been able to do and having all these people come into Cincinnati for conferences or conventions or whatever. Most people would come up, people I hadn't even known, waiters and servers and different people that would, they knew me when I came into the restaurants or different places, but they would come up and people would just be like, thank you. I have a sister going through this, or I have a brother, or, I'm part of the community. And to me, that is like the best. I don't care if you're the Fast 55 company or you're the your top whatever Deloitte 100. Those are great, but what's great is being able to instill change. And I think
absolutely
and that's the cool parts about what we are able to do and to be able, not only as a CEO, not only as an owner of a business, but all of us in general, to be able to give back.
But it's not money. I mean, money is critical. I mean, you got to have money.
Yeah.
I mean, and you got to give money, and if you got it, and I'm not here to tell people how much money they should or shouldn't give, but giving is just, are you more focused on yourself or or are you more focused on the people around you that you care about and your community and whatever principles and values you have? To me, that's what I mean by that more than, because there's a lot of people that don't have money to give, and that's great. Okay, but, there's a lot of ways to give.
Tons.
There's a lot.
All right, Josh, as we're kind of ending up, and listen, a lot of entrepreneurs listen to the show. What's your feedback? If you had to give kind of a couple of points or 1 point to these entrepreneurs listening on the show, what would be your one feedback or one good advice to them as they make their journey?
Well, that's I would say be super, super strategic at the beginning. Super focused on whatever it is you're doing, and make sure that, again, I said at the beginning, that growth is not your strategy. Because before you can pivot and do the things we talked about, looking at a wide lens or worrying about you against the competition or differentiating yourself, you got to be successful first to actually be a competitor. Right. And I've certainly made that error many, many times. So whatever you're going to do at the beginning, do that great, and then who knows where that takes you. Well,
Josh Guttman, I appreciate you coming on HIT. Remember, it is all about high intensity tactics here. We love it, and we appreciate you being able to share your advice and your insight on business with us today. It's always amazing to get different entrepreneurs like yourself in here.
Well, I had fun. Thanks for having me.
Well, hey, listen, remember, you have always had the pen to create your chapters. Write some new stuff down today. Get focused. Go out there. Live life by design, not by default. Thanks for tuning in today. Everybody have a great day.